Every year, gardeners spend hundreds of dollars on products that solve problems their kitchen bin already solves for free. Slug pellets, slow-release fertilizer, fungicide sprays, deer fencing, bulb forcing kits. Every single one of them has a zero-cost alternative that works just as well and in some cases better. The gardening industry has spent decades making sure you reach for the product before you reach for the solution that costs nothing. These are 12 of those solutions. Some of them are used by professional growers who never mention it publicly. Some of them were buried in agricultural research that never made it to a garden center shelf. All of them will save you money this season. Stay to the end. Trick 12 does two jobs at once that most gardeners spend $30 a year doing separately. The first trick costs nothing and takes 30 seconds. When your roses need feeding, do not compost your banana peels. First, bury them whole, directly in the soil next to the roots. Composting first loses much of the potassium in the leachate. Burying whole keeps it locked in the organic material and releases it slowly, directly at the root zone, over the following 6 to 8 weeks. Potassium is the primary driver of flower size and intensity. Most gardeners buying rose fertilizer are buying potassium at a premium. The peel in the bin delivers the same thing for nothing. Gardeners who switch to this consistently report noticeably larger blooms within a single season. That trick works underground. The next one works above it and speeds up a process most gardeners wait months to complete. The second trick turns a $5 fish tank pump into a composting accelerator. Push an aquarium air tube into the center of your compost heap and connect it to a small pump. Run it for a few hours a day. The extra oxygen feeds the aerobic bacteria that break down organic material, and aerobic decomposition is dramatically faster than the anaerobic process that happens in an untended heap. Aerated composting can reduce breakdown time by up to 50%. Commercial composting facilities spend thousands on aeration equipment to achieve exactly this. A second-hand aquarium pump from a charity shop achieves the same result for the cost of pennies in electricity per week. But the tricks that save the most money are the ones that prevent expensive problems before they start. This next one costs nothing and protects your seedlings at the moment they are most vulnerable. The third trick is a chamomile tea soak for seeds before planting. Brew a strong cup of chamomile, let it cool completely, and soak your seeds overnight before they go in. Chamomile contains natural antifungal compounds bisabolol and chamazoline that have been documented to suppress the fungal pathogens responsible for damping off, the condition that collapses seedlings at soil level in the first weeks of growth. Commercial growers use fungicide seed treatments that cost significant money per application. Chamomile does the same job for the cost of a tea bag and one night of soaking. The antifungal properties are real, documented in horticultural research, and completely overlooked by mainstream gardening culture. From seedlings to fruit trees, the fourth trick protects established plants from a category of disease that costs orchardists significant money every season. Plant garlic at the base of your fruit trees. Not decoratively, deliberately. Garlic releases sulfur compounds, primarily allicin, through its roots as it grows. Those compounds suppress soil-borne fungal infections that destroy fruit tree root systems and cause premature fruit drop. This is the same antifungal mechanism behind commercial fungicide sprays occurring naturally underground with no application required and no chemical residue on the fruit. Plant 4 to 6 cloves around the drip line of each tree in autumn. They cost almost nothing. They work continuously. And unlike a spray, they do not wash off in rain. What the garlic does for your trees, the next trick does for your entire garden, releasing nutrients steadily for 2 full years from something most people throw away without a second thought. The fifth trick is burying old wool in your planting holes. Wool from old jumpers, offcuts, anything natural and undyed is between 10 and 17% nitrogen by dry weight. Buried in the soil, it decomposes slowly over 1 to 2 years, releasing that nitrogen steadily into the root zone in exactly the pattern that expensive slow-release fertilizer pellets are engineered to mimic. The mechanism is identical. The material is free. A single old jumper buried in sections across a vegetable bed provides a nitrogen source that continues feeding plants through 2 full growing seasons. Most people send that jumper to landfill. It is worth more in the ground. The sixth trick takes 30 seconds and a tablespoon of something most households already have. Dissolve 1 tablespoon of blackstrap molasses, not regular molasses, blackstrap specifically, in a full watering can and apply it to your lawn or garden beds. Blackstrap molasses is dense with carbon compounds that feed the beneficial bacteria in soil. Those bacteria are the engine of natural fertility. They break down organic matter, release nutrients, and create the soil structure that makes plants resilient to drought and disease. A healthy bacterial population reduces fertilizer dependence significantly over successive seasons. The effect compounds. The more you apply, the richer the microbial community becomes, and the less your soil needs from outside inputs. Most gardeners have never heard of applying molasses to soil. The ones who do consistently report greener, denser grass and visibly healthier plants within a few weeks without a single chemical application. The next trick protects your garden's perimeter from animals that can undo weeks of growing in a single night, and it costs nothing beyond a conversation with your hairdresser. The seventh trick is human hair scattered along garden borders. Ask any hairdresser for the clippings. They collect bags of it daily and are almost always happy to give it away. Scatter it along the edges of the garden. The scent of humans, strong and recent and fresh clippings, deters deer and rabbits from entering the area. Wildlife management studies have documented this effect. It is not permanent rain dilutes the scent, but refreshed every few weeks through the growing season. It provides a deterrent that costs nothing and requires no fencing, no netting, and no repellent sprays. Used regularly, it genuinely works. The eighth trick gives you a second chance with bulbs you thought you had missed entirely. If you missed the autumn planting window for tulips or daffodils, do not throw the bulbs away. Place them in the freezer for 6 weeks before planting. Tulip and daffodil bulbs require a cold vernalization period to trigger their bloom cycle. Outdoors through winter, they receive this naturally. In your freezer, they receive it artificially. After 6 weeks, plant them as you normally would. They will bloom as though they had wintered in the ground. Results vary slightly by variety. Some respond better than others, but for the vast majority of common tulip and daffodil bulbs, this technique rescues a planting season that would otherwise be written off entirely. The ninth trick turns something most people pour down the drain every evening into a mild liquid fertilizer for the entire garden. Save the water from boiling pasta, potatoes, rice, or vegetables cooled to room temperature before application. It is starchy and mineral rich, containing compounds that leach from the food during cooking. Applied to the soil around your plants, it provides a gentle nutritional input that costs nothing and uses water you were already generating. One critical rule: the cooking water must be completely unsalted. Salted water applied to soil will damage or kill plants. Use only unsalted cooking water, and the drain receives nothing that your garden could have used. The 10th trick cuts watering frequency dramatically through summer using something most people recycle without a second thought. Before laying mulch over your beds, wet 6 to 8 sheets of newspaper and lay them directly on the soil surface, overlapping the edges by several inches so there are no gaps. Cover them with your mulch layer as normal. The wet newspaper beneath the mulch holds moisture in the soil for significantly longer than mulch alone, acting as a physical barrier to evaporation. It also suppresses weeds at the soil surface before they can germinate. It biodegrades naturally into the soil over the course of the season, adding organic matter as it breaks down. In trials comparing mulched beds with and without a paper layer underneath, the paper mulched beds required watering significantly less frequently in hot, dry conditions. Use plain black and white newsprint, avoid glossy or heavily colored pages whose inks are less appropriate for the garden. The 11th trick is one that professional tomato growers have been using for decades, while most home gardeners plant upright and wonder why their plants struggle in dry spells. When transplanting tomatoes, dig a long trench rather than a vertical hole. Remove the lower leaves from the stem. Lay the plant on its side in the trench with only the top growth above soil level. The buried stem will develop roots along its entire length over the following weeks, creating a root system vastly larger and more drought resilient than any upright planted tomato can develop. Professional greenhouse growers and commercial market gardeners use this technique as standard practice. It is rarely mentioned in home gardening guides. The plants establish faster, drought stress far less, and consistently produce heavier yields than their upright planted equivalents grown in the same conditions. The 12th trick does 2 jobs at once that most gardeners pay for separately, and it comes from something you are probably throwing away every time you light a fire. Wood ash from a fireplace or wood burner is one of the most underused materials in any garden. Applied in a dry ring around vulnerable plants, it creates a barrier that slugs will not cross the fine particles, irritate their mucus, and they avoid it entirely. At the same time, wood ash is rich in potassium and calcium and raises soil pH in acidic beds. Most gardeners either discard it or use it only as a pH amendment, never knowing it also works as a slug deterrent. One honest caveat: wood ash loses its deterrent effectiveness when it gets wet. reapply after significant rain. But in dry conditions, it is a slug barrier and a soil amendment in a single free material, doing the work of two products that together cost $30 a season. A retired couple in Wales began using all 12 of these methods 2 seasons ago after calculating that they were spending over £400 a year on garden inputs. After one full season running on zero-cost alternatives, wool in the beds, molasses on the lawn, ash at the borders, chamomile soaks for seedlings, trench-planted tomatoes, their spend dropped to under 40 pounds. The garden produced more than it ever had. Their tomatoes ran into October. The roses were the best they had grown in 15 years. We were paying for solutions to problems we already had sitting in the house, the husband said. Once you see it, you cannot unsee it. The gardening industry is worth billions precisely because gardeners keep treating problems as product opportunities. Slugs become a pellet purchase. Nitrogen becomes a bag. Fungus becomes a spray. Every one of those products has a zero-cost alternative, most of them older, most of them more effective over time, and all of them invisible on a garden center shelf. Because invisible solutions do not generate revenue. We have a video on the 6 soil secrets that ancient farmers used without ever buying a single input. Click on it, and we will see you there.